Hi, Court. How are
Good.
you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I got to work. I forgot my tripod.
Oh my God. I was gonna say, you're working today, day before Thanksgiving.
Well, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
always working. Aren't you?
you
You're
are.
never not working.
Right? That's true. That's true. You're always on.
What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving?
We're going up to Sundance. Have you
Oh,
ever had their Thanksgiving dinner buffet?
no.
It's so good. We do it on the years where it's just gonna be like a small group and Um, so we're going up with my dad and my brother's family, and then we'll be here for dessert round two. But their buffet is, I love Sundance to begin with. But their Thanksgiving spread is so good and it's got so many options. My kids actually go nuts for their bacon. That's that's their
What is it,
thing.
candied?
Probably. Yeah. It's got sugar on it. Sounds about right.
Well, I go nuts for bacon too,
Yeah.
so I get it. Your kids are
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, they are. So we're doing that. What are you doing?
Um, we always get turkey from Bam Bam's, which
Mm,
makes it so easy.
so
I
easy
know.
and so good.
So good. And then we just make slides or sides and desserts, but it's
Yeah.
mostly my mom's with us this year, so it's my mom and Chris fighting in the kitchen the
Oh,
whole time, and I just don't have to do anything.
you don't.
So
What's
yeah.
Chris's favorite thing to make? Chris, does everyone know that he's like such a good cook and
I don't
baker?
know. My husband loves to cook, and it's crippled me because I when he's gone or when he's out of town, I still don't cook, and I'm like, well, what are we ordering? Like I don't. It's gotten it's good, but it's bad.
Oh,
But he likes to he'll make he loves to do what is her name? Mashed potatoes by what's her name? Anyway, the strained ones where you strain them
oh,
through the rice strainer. Yeah, and then you add as much butter as you do mashed potatoes.
I love that. I love that. Fun fact about me, I'm nodding like I know what you're talking about. With the strainer and the mashed potatoes. I don't like potatoes unless it's a French
Oh yeah,
fry.
we
Like
talked about this the other day, which is so weird to me.
I just like I can't do it. And I've been married to Ryan for 19 and a half years. And I remember from the very first Sunday dinner at his house, and I proclaimed I don't like potatoes. And his whole family was like, what do you mean? Like that couldn't comprehend. And his cute dad was like, well, you don't like other people's
Yeah.
potatoes. And for 19 years, Rick has tried to convince me with different, because he's an excellent cook. And so is Ryan's mom. And it would just be the running joke for years at Sunday dinner because we lived down in Southern California by then. And he would do twice baked, he would do roasted, and until he served me like homemade French fries, I was like, it's not going to happen, Rick.
It's like when you don't like Disney and people are like you, well, you haven't been to Disney with me. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
I'm good.
Yeah. People are like, well, I don't really like cake. And I'm like,
Haven't had cake,
you
Courtney's
haven't had
cake.
my cake. You haven't had good cake. Like, let's revisit this after you make one of my recipes.
Hmm.
So
I like your cake.
thank you.
I
What flavor did
actually
I
like
give you the
anything
other
I don't
day?
have to make, and I don't make anything. So
Yeah.
this is good. Um, Court, thanks for jumping on and joining the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. I just love hanging out with you.
Oh,
So
same. We
happy
had a
morning.
fun lunch a week ago.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
So good.
Um, and so I started I did this last week. Instagram, when you go out to eat and phones eat first, Instagram eats first on my
I love
podcast.
it.
And so all you guys are seeing it here first. So we're just gonna go right back to an old school style that I did. But Courtney, how did you get started?
Oh, it goes back because Cake by Courtney was never part of the plan. I graduated from Brigham Young University with a broadcast journalism degree. I went to BYU knowing and planning that I would be in broadcast. It's something both my parents do. My dad is on the business side, runs television stations. My mom was on air. She's kind of a Jane of all trades. And so I just grew up knowing that that's what I wanted to do. And as I finished at BYU, I ended up getting into media consulting and did that. I traveled the country for 13 years, moderating focus groups and working with different television shows and talent, and loved that. Um, when my son was born, so Weston's going to be 16 in a week. We'll talk about it later. I can't handle it. I had been working in consulting for about 4 years at that point, when he was born, and so I started freelancing, and we were living in Santa Monica, and then his first birthday was coming up, and I thought, oh, this would be really fun to make a homemade cake. I never made a homemade cake. Grew up baking and learning different things in the kitchen with my mom, but I never made a homemade cake before. And I thought that could be really fun. And also I was trying to impress Ryan's parents, which is the running joke, because I'm like, I wanted to like be in the kitchen with them helping and kind of like prove myself to them. And since we were having everyone over for Weston's birthday, that was my first cake. It was from Bon Appetit magazine. And it was a peanut butter cake with chocolate buttercream. I still remember it. And when we finished it that day and I was cleaning up, I just remember thinking, oh, that was really fun to do that, like to make that cake and then serve it, and just the whole process of it, and kind of teaching myself how to do it. So I just kept doing that as a hobby. I was still consulting. We moved to San Francisco. And then 10 years ago, we moved to Utah. And by that point, I just taught myself a bunch about cake with trial and error. Like that was it. Just baking a bunch of different recipes, tweaking things, learning to create my own. And so then a year into being here in Utah, I started Cake by Courtney, just thinking, I've got some good recipes and it'd be really fun to like share them, but also teach people how to do this,
Mhm.
since I kind of just figured it out on my own. And so it was still kind of felt like a hobby then, but that's kind of how it was born after all that time, just having fun making cake. And I thought, okay, here we go. Let's do it. Cakebycourtney.com.
And you've been through a lot of iterations of content publications, I guess I would
Yeah.
say. Like so you started out as a blog,
Yeah.
cakebycourtney.com.
Yeah, well, I guess the first blog technically was Blogspot.
Sure.
Like I just did the easy way, and I changed that
Us
a
Blogspot
couple times.
girls, we know how to HTML because you had to.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I still didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, the
No.
baking was so fun, the creating was so fun. I mean, looking back, I just wish I would have like known a little bit more and started the blog the right way with a website, because I've had to change it a couple times to get up to speed, but you
And
live and
then
learn.
and then when did you start like going ham on Instagram?
I mean, I started Instagram when I started the blog, and that first year I had just really good organic growth. And it was so interesting because you go back to those days and I was just taking my own pictures and I was just throwing things up when I made them. And so there was nothing pretty back then, and it kind of just reminds me, like, it doesn't have to be overly curated by any means, but it was the content, the recipes, the teaching that started to kind of just grow. And I think I also hit it when cupcakes were kind of on their way out, like that had been the trend, and cakes were coming back in. And so in that first year I had a lot of growth, and then started teaching classes at Orson Gigi here in Salt Lake, and it just kind of kept growing from there.
Yeah, and what is like your main medium now?
Um, Still Instagram. I mean, that's kind of probably the main one, but you can find me on YouTube. I do many episodes there baking other things other than cake. So it's kind of just like, you don't have to do cake if that feels too overwhelming. Let's just get in the kitchen and have fun. And I have my online course, my books, and I mean, on TikTok, I need to maybe hire my son to run that for me, but
Yeah,
figuring it out.
TikTok is it's a nut to crack for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
What's your favorite to do on all
Uh,
those things?
Probably Instagram. I feel like most connected to my audience here. I think we've been able to create, and when I say we, I mean me and my followers. Like we've been able to create like a really great community, and the space is just really positive and fun, and they humor me with content that's not cake. Anytime a hair tutorial, Weston's golf clothes, family food wars. And so I think it's just, yeah, it's kind of my favorite because I'm most comfortable there, but also the community feels like tight knit.
Yeah. I also love how you'll do well, I have like two thoughts, but I love how you do in-person classes.
Yeah.
Chris and I took one, and I think it was pre-COVID.
Yeah. I've been teaching those for like 8 years.
And it was such a fun date
Yeah.
night. It was so fun to come, but I think you have you have this community. Well, and I guess this is a question I'm gonna ask. You have a community that feels like they know you
Yeah.
when you put out so much content. And is that why you started the classes, so you could like engage with people in person, or what was the impetus with that?
It was part of the reason. I also just like when I had the opportunity to start teaching in person, I was like, this really like allows me to teach and really show you. There's only kind of so much you can do virtually. And like, so being there and being able to teach in a better way, but also being able to connect in the face-to-face connection and contact, like it was all of it. And it's made it such a positive experience that, I mean, I'm so surprised I'm still teaching, only because I'm like, are people not sick of me or cake yet? But I'll keep teaching as long as people want to keep doing classes, because I love being able to connect face to face with people that usually I talk to over the screen.
Right. Right. And it's so fun to
Yeah.
connect in person with people. I love that. Okay. So looking back over the past 16 years, I cannot believe you're going to have a 16-year-old.
Me neither.
Courtney, as someone who has an 18 and a 15 and a half year old, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Driving's not
Yeah.
that scary.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Find My Friend will be, Lacey and I talked about this last week. You know, Lace.
Yeah.
It was like I have my most screen time on Find My Friends.
Yes. Oh yeah. Wesley, I mentioned it to him last night. He was leaving. I'm like, what's your plan? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, that's okay. I'll just follow you on Find My Friends. He's like, Mom, that's kind of creepy. I'm like,
No.
sorry. I like to follow
No.
the car that you're in
Yes.
and see where you're going.
No, that's safety.
Thank you.
What are like some challenges that you faced in your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh my gosh, there's been plenty. You've been around for a lot of them too. I mean, um, one you run into the like, okay, I've gotten to a certain point with maybe the content I've created online. What more can I do? I have ideas for products. I have ideas for a cake box subscription service. Kind of figuring all that out. Like when you're just, I'm definitely like that creative personality that the ideas are like boom, 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 boom. But like how to execute them and get them figured out and do them, I can sometimes struggle with, because there's just like so many ideas happening, and I don't like the mundane details of the organization of things. That my husband's really good at that. So kind of just like transitioning and doing that and starting products was a little bit of a challenge, but I found the right like designer that I wanted to work with. But right before COVID, I started the cake box subscriptions. Remember
Yes.
doing that? And it was very much like, okay, I want this to be like a Hello Fresh. We're going to mail you all the individual ingredients and the recipe, and it's in a box, and it was so cute. But it was it was hard, and I don't know, I still sometimes struggle with, at what point do I know to like invest in myself and my ideas to like a big extent, right? To a risky point financially. And doing the boxes, we were doing them on our own. I had friends packing boxes. I found someone locally that could package the ingredients in a food safe facility. But there were so many moving parts to this whole thing that it became complicated and overwhelming. And it's like, okay, do I go to a warehouse of our own and try to figure that out? And so I remember that was one of the first times in like product and my business side of Cake by Courtney that felt really challenging and overwhelming. And towards the end of that, we did it for a year, but I remember at the end of 2019, just like having this overwhelming feeling that I needed to stop the cake boxes. And one of the most challenging things, and I'm sure you are familiar with this feeling, is feeling like you failed at something.
Yes.
You know, it's not just
Yes.
the challenge of supply and demand or anything
You
like
mean
that.
like when you decide you're gonna quit
Yes.
something,
Yes.
and not quit, but like let a business go, or
Yes.
let like one of the categories go, or whatever.
Yes, exactly. So I've been like all this hype, all this work into those cake boxes and thinking that that could be huge and we could eventually grow and into our own space and everything. And by the end of 2019, I had this pit in my stomach of just like, you need to let that go. You need to let it go. And so that was the challenge only because I was like, but like I failed. Did I fail? And that feeling of failure. And but what was crazy is we like wrapped it up. I cut my losses and we wrapped it up in, I think the last boxes went out February 2020. And then COVID hit. And I thought, oh, interesting. That kind of worked out. I would have had to like put a big halt to it anyway. And I don't know, I think I was just a little bit more prepared for it. So, but I don't know, I learned a lot. So at the same time, I'm like, oh, that was a really interesting experience. And I'm glad I tried it.
Yeah.
You know, not everything's going to be a slam dunk, and that's okay.
How so I love that you brought up like you felt like you failed, because I've had so many things where I put a ton of effort into it, I make a big deal out of it, it gets launched, and then either it doesn't fit into my business model, or the customers aren't in love with it, or any myriad of reasons, right? So how did you reconcile the failure and then turn it into whatever positivity you have now, and whatever that is? Yeah.
I think part of it was just going from that like sick to my stomach feeling I need to be done with this, to then feeling like a weight was lifted off my shoulders and feeling very at peace and like calm about that decision. And so I think that helped. It's like, okay, I know I made the right decision, even though it feels like
Okay, wait, can I ask you a question about
yeah,
that too? We're
yeah.
going to sidebar that.
Okay.
How, as an entrepreneur, I totally get this.
Yeah.
But I think someone who's maybe listening that doesn't, how much of the risks that you take are off of feeling and not off of they make sense on paper?
There's been a lot actually, like a lot of this business. I just, not to like make this a religious podcast or anything, but I turn to my Heavenly Father about everything and ask him about everything. And I try to make decisions based on the, you know, just the knowledge and the analytics. And but sometimes there are a lot of that same, like even like looking at analytics and, oh, do I do a second cookbook? Well, the first one did well. It was still like, I need to feel good about it. I'm not just going to do it because the numbers say I should do it. Or, okay, I could keep going. We could figure this out with the cake boxes. I know that we can find the resources, but I can't keep going forward if I don't feel good about it. And I, you know, so it plays a big part for me because I also think I'm just more emotionally based. Is like Ryan's very logical. He is the one to be like, well, this makes sense because here's your numbers and this. And I'm like, what? I don't know. I don't feel like that's the right thing to do right now. What about you?
Yeah,
Are you like that at all?
totally. Almost every entrepreneur I know, though, is
Yeah.
like, I feel like I'm really comfortable with risks because if I feel good about an idea, it does not feel like a risk to
Yeah.
me. It feels like a fun adventure or
Yeah.
something I want to try. And if I don't feel good about it and I get too stuck in like, okay, let's model this out. Let's make sure this makes sense from the numbers. Let's create a focus group. Let's ask people.
Yeah.
If I get too stuck in that, then I get my decision making actually becomes a little more, I trust myself less.
Yeah.
And
I also feel like there's less motivation there. Like if it's something I feel really good about, no matter how hard it gets, I'm like, it's fine. Let's keep pushing through it. We can do this. We'll figure it out. Like you have the passion when you feel good about something.
Yeah.
And when you know it's not right, you're not passionate about it. And if you don't have that passion, I just feel like what's the point? Like you're not gonna like what you're doing at all. It's always gonna feel like hard work.
Well, and like you, I actually pray about so many things that I do in my business. Like I at night, in the morning, the
Yep.
Heavenly Father's like probably like God is like, okay, like, just
It's
go
like,
do something. But
here's Courtney again.
I make him a part of it, and
Yeah.
so I feel like I always say like one of my strengths or my only entrepreneur strength is that I never realize how risky things are because I just have this confidence around like, wait, I feel good about it. I know I can make it work. Even if it gets hard and there's lessons to learn, like that's not scary to me. That's like
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
I don't mind when things are hard. I don't like when things are unsettled, but
Yeah.
I can work through. I have like a pretty high tolerance for discomfort in my life.
Yeah.
Especially if I feel like, oh, this is what I know I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen you get gritty and work through a lot of things, so I can attest to that.
Yeah, just a few. Okay, wait, what were we talking about? We were going on. We had a good thing going
We
before we
did.
sidequest that.
You're asking the wrong
Just
person.
you were letting go of the cake box. You felt good
Oh,
about
yeah.
it. It ended up being this
Yeah.
thing.
And I also think when you can like take a minute, like you can mourn something that doesn't work out. You can mourn feeling like you failed and give yourself that space. But I think then there's a point where you're like, all right, let's pick yourself back up and let's look at what happened and that whole year or however long and what are the takeaways. Because there's never been a moment that in anything, whether it's gone good or bad, like that I haven't learned something, whether it's been about myself, whether it's been about business, what I want to do, how things work. Like there's always something to learn from, and that's a positive thing. And then it's like, all right, let's course correct and think about the next thing when I'm ready to think about the next thing.
So what'd you learn from the cake boxes?
I learned that I couldn't manage all of them, that kind of managing and staying on top of the timelines is not my strength. And I'm totally okay with that. Like,
Hi, Danny. I'm doing an Instagram live.
hi, Danny.
What do you need?
That address looks wrong. You can have me send those 30.
Okay. I'll come out and check it when I'm done. Okay, thank you.
Always working.
Yes.
But
Sorry.
I would just say it was interesting because it kind of helped me like fine tune my strengths or maybe focus more on my strengths where I'm like, okay, that was not my strength. And I was still working through a lot of my mental health journey and did my first cookbook after that. And then after that, like was diagnosed with ADHD and got on medication. And I'm like, wow, maybe I could go redo the boxes now, or maybe rewrite that first cookbook that ended up having more errors in it than I am happy to admit. But like, I learned some things about myself, and it was part of my like journey on getting me to the right place with my mental health, but also just learning like what are my skill sets? I got to lean into those. And I don't know, maybe we can come back to the cake boxes at some point if there's ever the right like partnership. But I know that I would not be the one managing and organizing those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually love that. When I hire people, I try to augment my strengths
Mhm.
because I actually am really confident, really comfortable, and I know what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And then I'm really confident and I have no ego wrapped up in what I know I'm not good at.
Yeah.
And I think that right there is a skill that every entrepreneur should learn before you even learn how to read a P&L, honestly. Is like really take stock of what you're good at and what you know you need help in to accomplish a task.
Yeah.
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 I love that.
Totally agree with you. And I think there's some humility that you learn there. Because as an entrepreneur, you're likely the one person, right, that is starting with the idea. Like when you were sewing your moccasins and I was making my first cake. So I was just just me. And you're thinking, oh, I need to be able to do all of it. When really, maybe at the beginning you kind of do, but the sooner you can kind of figure out, okay, here's what my focus is, and here's where I can like delegate and hire or, just streamline a little bit, like things become so much smoother and you're really able to like flourish in your own space where you're just focused on what you're really good at.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, I love this. Okay, here's a good question. Do you feel like you know what you're doing?
Still no. No, I mean, yes and no. Like, yeah, I love being in the kitchen and baking, and there's things that I know what I'm doing there, but I still have failed attempts at things. I feel like, yes, I know what I'm doing, but at the same time, no, because the space that we're in and social media and business and small businesses, it's always changing. And so I have tried to surround myself with really smart people like you, like Anna, taking courses to just make sure I'm like up to speed and I'm not missing anything or falling behind as far as the changes on the platforms that I use and the things that I'm doing. But yeah, so I'm like, I didn't answer that well, but it was like a yes and a no,
Right.
you know?
Don't you feel like my daughter started college last in August.
Yeah.
And she called me and she's like, I don't know what to major in. Mom, it feels like everyone knows what they're doing. And I was like, oh, Hattie, no one knows what they're doing. And I feel like that with almost every entrepreneur, like no one knows what they're doing.
No.
I don't
But
know what I'm doing. I mean, I know how to do what I'm currently doing.
yes. Yes.
I know how to do that. But where I'm going and what's coming up, I mean, I have a concept of a plan.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No.
But isn't that life? Because I feel like anytime I'm like, no, this is what I'm doing. I know my life plan. This is what's happening. I mean, I was going to be like Studio 1A, sign me up for Robin Roberts' job and Good Morning America or the Today Show, right? Like that was the, and I wanted that for my whole life. I'm not even kidding. As a kid, like I just knew. And as I got closer and closer to that, I got moved away from that, right? And found other things. And then to have this cake world just evolve, again, that was not part of the plan. I didn't know cake when I first got started. And I think that's kind of the fun part and the exciting part about being an entrepreneur, because while you have the ideal plan and you do have to make plans and strategy and you've got to think forward, obviously, but still things don't always work out the way you had planned them. And I find too that even when that happens and the course changes, there's some really cool stuff that happens and can happen. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, you really have to be open to a little bit of that flexibility and open to things not going as planned, and then just being ready to adjust when needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I yeah, I had something to say about this, but I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Yeah, I had an employee once who was always like, when do things get easy? Like every time I turn around, it's like a new fire to put out. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's actually just how this goes.
Yeah.
Like if you want an easy, predictable workspace, like go get into accounting or something that's like consistent and the same. But I actually look forward to, I don't love when things don't work out, especially when I'm on like a tight deadline. That's not fun for me.
Yeah.
But
that's stressful.
I love like the happy accidents that come from those kind of things.
Yeah.
And the way that it's like, oh, I would have never thought of that had X, Y, or Z not happened, or had this thing not gone the way it did. And I love being able to pivot and change course. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like entrepreneurship, and like you said, it doesn't get easier. It reminds me of running. Like at no point in my running does it really feel like it's getting easier, but I do know I'm getting stronger. I know that I can run faster miles now. I know that I can do a marathon. And it's the same with running a business. It doesn't really get easier. Some things maybe do, and as far as like certain habits that you have, but there's always a curveball. There's always something thrown your way, and as moms and entrepreneurs, all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, I've got to juggle this new phase of life with my kids and continue to build a company, continue to make sales, help provide for my family. Like there's always something. I remember listening to an interview or a podcast you did years ago, and somebody asked you, oh, well, how do you find balance and all of it? You remember this?
Yeah, and actually Ruth, Todd, and I were just talking about this.
Oh, well, and what was your answer? Because it was like,
there isn't. My life is not balanced. No.
But I like that you like followed that up with, no, it's not going to be balanced equally like this. And sometimes work is here and maybe families here and church is here and friends, and they shift and they move around. So there's priorities at certain times and there's other priorities at other phases. And so I love that because it has kept me feeling better about myself when I feel like things are kind of crazy and maybe it is not feeling very balanced, but I'm reminding myself, oh, well, I launched a cookbook in a month or whatever it was during that year. And it's going to be crazy with work right now because it's Black Friday and we're going into the fourth quarter. And that is my biggest earning quarter for my company. And I've got to focus on that. So there's certain things that are a little bit lower on the priority list, but as soon as that changes, then you kind of shift things around, and that's okay because things just don't need to be, and I don't know how they can be equally balanced at all times. And like if we think that, I feel like I've just set myself up for a spiral of failure and I'm not good enough when I think I got to be here all the time with everything.
I've talked to so many female entrepreneurs about this. Like I said, Ruthie and I were talking about this the other night, and she's incredible. Like,
Yes.
if no one knows about Ruth Todd, like I'm gonna have her on the podcast. She's incredible. She's CEO. She's raised a family. She's so nice, so kind, and it's also this, I think it's propaganda because men don't think about it, but as women we do. And so I think somewhere along the line we've been told there's some propaganda where we've been made to believe that this is something we need to be concerned about. I do not have balance in my life right now. My house we have a lot of people living with us, which I love to be able to like have people living in our house, but then everything's kind of piles up. I'm working out great, but there are times like 4 weeks ago when I was not working out at all.
Yep.
I'm coming into work and I'm getting a lot of work done, but there's times during the summer where I take 2 full weeks off so that my family and I can be together the whole time. And so I don't look at that as balance. I look at like, okay, across a year, what are the things that I need to give my attention to? And can I have intensive times on those things? And then can I have sparse times on those things? And you can, when you have little kids, this is my caveat. Yeah. When you have the little kids, that's just how life is. It's busy, it's crazy, it's wild, it's physically demanding, it's emotionally demanding. And I promise I remember having a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and that feels like it's yesterday. And I was so spent emotionally, mentally, everything, exhausted. And I was running my business and I think doing almost all the jobs at the time. I never felt more out of control. And I say this with all the love in my heart. I would go back to that in a second, just to have my babies at that age. But I also love the phase of life that I'm in now, where I can work out almost at any time I want, or I have a lot of freedom emotionally, physically, and mentally. But 90% of my brain space is now taken up with where are my children and what are they doing. So it's just flipped. So I think don't search for balance. Don't try to find it, but just like embrace the phase of life you're in, and then maximize all the things you need to. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I do think there's been it's interesting how much is put on us women, whether we're moms or not, just as women in general. I think there's a lot on our shoulders. I think naturally and innately we put a lot there because we have the feelings of compassion and love for others, and we want to do good. And I think we just are kind of born with that feeling. But I also think around us and socially, all those pressures of being a certain way and being able to do everything a certain way are just around us at all times. And I think when we take a step back, it's like, wait, that's not how this should be. And can we give ourselves some more grace, knowing that today my best is one made bed. That's mine. And I'm going to shut my kids' bedroom doors. And there's clothes piled in the laundry room that I need to get to. But I'd rather be talking to you, and I'll get to that if I can. But I want to go see a movie with my family today, and I'll figure out when we get it. And having everything feel perfect all the time just feels like the hardest job ever, and I don't want to do that job anymore. I chased it for too long.
I had a time where I had a nanny, and then I feel like, I don't know if you've had a nanny, but either nannies are good at keeping your house clean or good at hanging out with the kids. I feel like I will die on that hill. And I've had both, and I've loved both. And then my kids phased out of a nanny, and then I had what I called a house manager, and her job was at 4:00 p.m. to make my house feel like a boutique hotel, so that when I came home, candles were lit, pillows were fluffed, laundry was
brilliant.
And then now we have a lot of people in our house, and my husband also, we don't need it, and he doesn't like to have the extra person around, and so I don't have that right now. And so I look forward to a time when my kids are gone and I make something nice, like I clean the living room, it stays clean, but I also am sad to even think about that. And so I feel like that season will come, and I'll mourn the season I'm in and all of that stuff. But I think, like, I can remember last year before Hattie went to college, and her messes, we call her the nest girl, because wherever she's been, you can find a little nest. And they were getting to me. And then one morning I had gotten up to work out, and I looked at it, and instead of going, this mess, I went, oh, that means she's still here, and it just changed it. Oh, sorry if that was loud. It changed it for me, where I was like, oh, now every time I came home and I saw a nest, I was like, oh, cute. Like, we only have so many of these left. And so there's also, I don't know, I'm rambling a little bit, but like, I feel like just enjoy and embrace the time you're in. Like, it happened.
And it goes by so fast. And I'm with you. I look back at the phases of, when the kids were little and we were moving around, and all of a sudden, Weston's got 2.5 years left here, and Avery will be in middle school next year. And what's fun is a lot of the community on Cake By have been here for all of it, and they've seen it. And I think when we share those moments too, like this moment actually is really hard, or this phase is been tricky, and it's not all rainbows and sunshine all the time. I think it brings us together. It helps us support one another, because we need that. Like, that is so good and healthy to be able to say, oh, this is hard. This isn't actually as easy as maybe sometimes it looks, but I love it. I still love it. I love this phase I'm in. It's a different season of my life. But it can be hard sometimes, and it can come with the emotions and the ups and downs. And I just love too that we have a platform that you can share those things, and communities around us that are like, oh no, I get that. That's hard. Thanks for sharing, because I was feeling that way today too. So it's nice to know I'm not alone. And I think it's not only okay to not have balance, but it's okay to talk about not having balance and not having it all figured it out.
Yeah. I never want anyone to look at me and be like, she must have it all figured out. I don't. You guys, I'm a slob in my car. I have drink cups in there from last week. Like, never look at what I'm doing and think, wow, she must have it all together.
We all have our Courtney Cox. Do you remember Monica and Friends, the episode? She had her closet that Chandler
yes.
wanted to open. I'm like, we all have one.
No.
We all have something like that. And I
When
just
people are like, can we take your car? I'm like, no. No.
it's your space. Let it be it.
Exactly. Okay. I have a question. I'll answer it first so you can think of something,
Okay.
but I love thinking through this. We're all working on so many things. We all find tips and tricks as we go throughout our life. What is like something that you're either like, what's a habit you're doing or something you're doing right now that's like an actionable step that people can take into like this next little phase in their life? And I'll go first.
Okay.
You guys, I found this app called the Habit Tracker. I too have ADHD. Habits, I love a routine. I love it, but they're actually hard for me to get into. And so I found this app called Habit Tracker. I track all the things that I want to do. It has changed my life in a really good way. I'm able to check things off. And as you check things off, it makes the most satisfying little ding. Ding. I feel like I'm getting so many things done. So I started out like 6 weeks ago with one habit, and now I've just been adding habits and stacking my habits, and it's just been so good. And I feel like it has upped my productivity in a way that nothing has in a long time.
What are some of the habits that you've put on there?
Oh my gosh, it's stuff that weighs on me that and it's all personal. Like my prayers, like if I don't say my prayers, it weighs on me until I pray. And so just clearing up that brain space. Drinking my water, I will go and go and go and go and go and then be like, oh my gosh, I didn't drink enough water.
Yeah.
The most unsexy thing in the world is getting your protein in. And I see such a difference in my workouts, in my energy, in everything if I get my protein in. But it's so unsexy to stand over the food scale with a cottage cheese container, just scooping protein into your mouth. But if I do it, then I have so much more energy. And then I love to do like yoga nidra. I do my LED, just stuff that. You know, But being productive in those areas clears up this brain space for me to make decisions, for me to move quicker, for me to get other stuff done. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And my friends on it, like Instagram, our community, they know I wake up early because I want to have a habit. I know, you know, Susan, I'm like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I need to go because bedtime's at 9:30.
Past your bedtime.
Yeah. I was talking to Gary and Rena from Perk yesterday, and he's like, how early do you wake up? I'm like, it depends on the workout in the day, but anywhere between 4 and 5 a.m. But that became a habit over time. And it's something that I just mentally and physically rely on. And I get up and I get out of bed and I get on my knees. And I started that like a year or two ago, where I just felt like I need to be praying in the morning. It needs to be the first thing I think about and do, even before I get into the bathroom. And sometimes it's really short prayers. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, but just the mindset of like turning to my Heavenly Father first thing in the morning helps me keep my focus on Him. So that's one that I think has been a big game changer for me. But I really love habits, and I like the list. I love to check things off. But for me, that morning routine has been a big one, where it's prayer, it's exercise, running or weightlifting. It's, having 30 minutes before I wake the kids up where it's just quiet and I can kind of plan my day. But one more recently that I've been doing like this last year is I have this purple journal that I got from a friend of ours, Emily Freeman, and she called it the Book of Evidences, and it's totally empty. And she said, I have a book like this, and she just writes the miracles, the evidences of Heavenly Father's hand and the Lord's hand in her day. And maybe it's not every day, but just when it comes up. And I've started to keep track of little or big things. And most of them are actually really little evidences and reminders that Heavenly Father has been a part of my day, that the Lord is there. And that one for me, I'm excited, in a few years when I filled the book or however long, to look back and like continue to have that. I think it's helped my mindset focus more on gratitude and just more uplifting things, when I'm looking for the hand of the Lord in my day. So that's probably one more recently that I've added to that habit.
And do you feel, I love that. I feel like when I started to, I love, my favorite thing actually is to find God in my
Mm-hmm.
life. I love it so much. Um, and it's funny because like there's that saying, you find what you look
Yep.
for. And I think it's so true. And my friend Hollis was telling me about how his friend has like an ugly orange Subaru and he always makes fun of him about it. And then his friend was like, you're going to see an orange Subaru everywhere you go now. And Hollis was like, yeah, right. There are no orange Subarus. And then everywhere he goes, he starts seeing an orange Subaru. And I feel like the same thing is with when I try to find God in my life, like at first it's so hard for me, but then the more I practice that, the more I see him everywhere. Like in as small of a thing as like I find pennies everywhere and I just feel like, oh, that's a
Yep.
present. That's him
Yep.
telling me I'm on the right
Yep.
track. To like big miracles that I don't share. But have you found that practice has enriched, like gotten, like you see
Oh,
more as you go about it?
100%. I completely agree. You find what you're looking for, whatever that is in your life, whether it's for your business, your family, your mindset, your answers to questions you have. Like you will find what you're looking for, and being able to think and change the, oh, I found a penny, to, oh my gosh, I found a penny on my birthday. Happy birthday, by the way, belated
Thank
birthday.
you.
And gosh, was that just Heavenly Father smiling down on me, and just this little thing, right? Whether it's a text from someone I haven't heard from in a while, or I think of someone that I haven't reached out to in a while, and I'm like, gosh, I haven't thought about them for a while. And you get the thought, oh, I should text them. And you're like, well, that's Heavenly Father, like making sure that person knows that they're seen today. And so there's just so many opportunities to make the choice. Is this a coincidence? Did I just get lucky? Or is this a tender mercy and a miracle, or, just the hand of God in my life today? And I choose to believe that it's the hand of God, that, we're not in this alone. And it makes me happier. I feel like my mindset is just better most of the time. We all have our ups and downs, but yeah, it's I think a game changer.
Yeah. And something that I do to incorporate that into my business is when I have the craziest ideas, I have two people on my team that I know if I come to them with a crazy idea, they will say that's a good idea. They'll start writing down what I'm talking, and then they will then go and find a way to execute against that idea. And so when I get like this harebrained idea in my mind, like I had this idea for a product the other day based on something I saw that wasn't even related to freshly picked or babies
Yeah.
or moms or anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be an amazing product for this. We're already developing a prototype for it. And it's because I trust when those things come,
Yeah.
because of the little things that I'm looking for in my life, the pennies, the four-leaf clovers, the friend saying hi, someone reaching out, whatever
Yeah.
it is. Then when I get a harebrained idea, I'm like, okay, well, all these other things are coming, and they mean good things. And so we're working on this prototype right now for a product that I'm so excited about. And it's because I'm trusting all these other things in my life that those are good. So when this comes, it's like, yeah, hey, listen, Ashley, and she'll start writing
Yes.
exactly when I come in the room, and then she will then go execute against it, and it's like so amazing.
I love that. And I totally agree, because when I have been like very focused, right? Like, say, like starting my day with prayer and having prayers in my heart all day and looking for the hand of the Lord, like I I will have thoughts or just these little impressions, and it's often when I, like last weekend I was running, and Ryan's working on a business, and like I'm mid run, and all of a sudden I just like have this thought for him, and I just stop. But it was something I had been praying about, we'd been thinking about, And it just like comes, and you could easily brush that off and be like, oh, I'm so great. That was such a good idea. Or again, you make that choice of like, oh, Heavenly Father, thank you for prompting me with that thought and helping me see that this one product could be also this product.
Yeah.
And I just think that mindset like just makes life so fulfilling and less empty, and there's more hope. At least that's been my experience. I know everyone's going to be a little bit different, but um it just changes your whole outlook on life and people and experiences and letdowns and highs and lows.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. What advice would you give your, what year are we in? Your 2002, no, 2008 self,
Oh my
as you're just
gosh.
starting out with that first cake you made.
Yeah. So yeah, Weston. Okay, wait. He was born December 2008, right? So
Oh, so
he
2009. Yeah.
2009. But either that whole year of like motherhood, my depression was actually really bad and anxiety, and it wasn't something people talked about then. So I was like struggling with a lot of that and trying to find the balance and work. And you always hear like enjoy the moments that you're in. I wish I had a better understanding of that and like a better appreciation of that when I was younger at 26, 27, where it didn't feel like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this and run from this to the next thing. I just really wish I knew how important it was and how good it would be for me moving forward the rest of my life to like slow down. Like I could still get the things done that I wanted to, and I could be in consulting and I could have fun making those cakes and be a mom. But I don't know. I guess I wish I just would have really understood that I didn't have to put the pressure on myself to be a certain way. And would have probably just lightened the load a little bit that I felt on my shoulders back then. But I don't know. It's I don't know if that's like advice, but it's kind of man, I wish I just would have had a better understanding of some things like that.
Yeah. I love that. Courtney, thank you.
Thanks for having me. This was so
Yes, you're
fun.
the
I
best.
love
This
you.
was so fun. I love, Courtney and I always mix business and God, and it's
It's
how it works, and it's
it's
been a
all
great.
it's
Yes,
all the same kind of, it's all
yes.
together. And we both have always, done that. And as I got into business and I saw you were someone like that, I just always admired it and just knew I'm like, oh, Susan's one of my people. Like
Mm-hmm.
she feels what I feel, gets it,
Yeah,
I've always
it's
appreciated that.
great. Okay, well, thank you. And
Okay.
we'll put links in the bio for Courtney, and this will be posted later if you want to refer back to it. But thank you.
You're the best.
See ya.
Mwah. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Bye.